What's up, guys? We good? We're
Yeah.
on? Sweet. So we're live, and we're super excited to have you guys with us. My name's Mike Baird, Real Estate Straight Talk. Another show that I want to put together and do for you. I'm really excited about this week's show. And by the way, a lot of the shows and the things we put together are all coming from questions from people that are out there on Twitter or on Facebook, or maybe they just found me whatever through a TV show or through a book or seen something. And this show has to do with expanding and growing businesses. And I've had this conversation quite a bit just this past week, so I think it's super relevant. Let me ask you this question. When's the last time you were in a fast food drive-thru and you ordered something and the attendant came back with the following question, and it is, do you want to supersize that? And I don't know about you, but like when I go through, I'm like, I don't know that I really need to supersize. I'm good. I'm good like where I'm at. I don't need like the extra large, huge fry. And by the way, check this out. I mean, this is the new deal that they're doing. Have you checked this? This is the Grand Mac at McDonald's. It's 890 calories. I picked it up so you can see what I'm talking about, but I've got 6 kids, and every once in a while we're like cruising through that drive-through, and it's like, do you want to supersize? Do you want to supersize? My kids are like, yeah, let's supersize, or Happy Meal, or toys, and all this kind of thing. And I think a lot of that's happening right now in the real estate world, and I just want to talk a little bit about that. Is it better to go supersize, or is it better to stick with kind of the normal value meal and what's happening right now? So I want you to think about that in your market, and maybe you're thinking, yeah, every once in a while it's okay to supersize, or every once in a while, hey, I'm okay to go bigger, or maybe, I just want to stick with exactly where I'm at with what I'm doing. So I want to walk you through a couple of examples and look at this question and analyze it and think about it in your mind. Is it better for me to supersize, or is it better for me to stay value meal? Okay? So let's walk through this. So again, 890 calories, or I think it's, what's the other one? Like the junior?
480.
The junior is like 480, right? So 890 or 480. And after we get a couple of deals under our belt, we start to get an idea for when we should supersize and when we shouldn't, and when it makes sense and when it doesn't. So I want to walk you through just a couple of deals that I'm doing right now that's happening. It's just this past week, and we've been analyzing exactly if we should move forward or not. So let's walk through some of these numbers. By the way, go ahead if you want to grab a pen, grab a paper. I want you just, not a lot of numbers, because I don't want to be super confusing about this, but definitely just a few numbers to look at, to think about. Should I go big? Should I stay where I'm at? Should I go smaller? And I want you thinking about that in your own real estate business, whether you've been in the business for a while, or maybe you're just thinking, hey, I want to start this thing out. Where should I start? Because a lot of people are like, hey, I really want to get involved in the game and just don't know where they should begin this. So I want to talk about that. So let's jump into this first deal, okay? And we're analyzing just this week. And this deal, by the way, it's on Herbert Avenue. So I'm just going to put Herbert Avenue to give you an idea for Herbert Avenue, okay? Herbert Avenue is in the downtown area. It's about 10 minutes away from the downtown area here where we're at. And it's about 4,000 square feet, 3,700 square feet, just right in there. So it's definitely on the bigger side. So when I'm thinking supersize, this is kind of one of those bigger assets, supersize in our particular market. Let's walk through the numbers. On this particular deal on Herbert, we're talking about a $550,000 purchase price, okay? Not too crazy, but yeah, it's kind of getting up there, right? 550. On this particular deal, we're gonna put about $100,000 into this rehab. 4,000 square feet, definitely carpet, definitely paint, a brand new kitchen, really top-end nice appliances, flooring, all the bathrooms are gonna be retweaked. So we're definitely gonna go through this thing item by item by item and make sure that it's completely dialed in. So you're thinking $550,000 purchase price, $100,000 in rehab, and you're thinking, well, that's not that much. I see that all the time on HGTV. People are going in, doing these huge renos. These renos and something like this, $100,000, we're talking about 6 months, maybe a year to get a deal like this done. So 6 months to a year on the supersized type of a deal that we're walking through right now. Now you're also thinking $550,000, we're gonna have some carrying costs on something like that, unless you have like all cash and you wanna put all your cash in and do a deal. But typically people do a deal like this and they're gonna put about, maybe minor money in and leverage the rest of it. So let's say they're gonna put, some money down and maybe have about $50,000 in carrying costs, which I don't think is completely out of the question. So we're gonna have some financing. So at the end of the day, 550 plus my 100 plus my other 50, I'm basically into this deal 700,000, right? So those are my costs. Purchase, rehab, financing, 700K. I want you to remember that number. So now let's work backwards and see what profit is in a deal like this. We ran some numbers. And on this particular deal, we're looking at an after rehab value. That's what the house is worth. And I don't want to get into all the ways that we go ahead and figure out how to find ARV. We do it through some comping and some analysis in that way. I definitely cover that in some other videos, so definitely check those videos out. But we basically found out that this property we believe to be worth about $850,000. And so that's what we think it's worth. We're gonna stick with that. Now we're gonna have to sell this property and have a few costs that are associated with the sale. And on something like this, we're looking at what, like 60,000, I think is what our numbers were on that. So 60,000 is what we're gonna look at to just sell it. When I say 60,000 in closing costs, this includes title fees, this includes paying other agents. I know a lot of times people don't think that stuff through, but when you're gonna sell a place, like definitely you're gonna have some agent fees, definitely you're gonna have some title fees, things like that, you're gonna come into effect. So at the end of the day, on the top end, if I take what it's worth and I subtract out my closing costs, we're looking at about 790K, which is what we're basically left over with on the top end. Now remember, I want you to think about what we're into this property with acquisition, rehab, and the financing costs. Do you remember what we were into it? I think it's 700,000, right? So if I look at this and I subtract out my total costs, so this is my gross profit, and I subtract out what my costs are, I'm looking at about 90K. Okay, let's write that down. Now you're probably thinking, who in the world wouldn't want to do a deal within 6 months and put an extra 90K in their pocket? That's pretty sweet, right? I know a lot of people do that. I like to do that type of a thing. Initially, I'm looking 90K. I like that. That feels good to me, right? It's a pretty big number. Let's just look at it just one step further and look at our actually cash on cash return on this particular deal. So if I'm looking at $90,000, the way I'm gonna analyze this deal is I'm gonna look at the top end and say 90K profit, and then I'm gonna ask myself all of my cash into the deal. Now if you remember, we purchased for $550, we put $100,000 into it, and then we have an additional $50,000 in carrying costs. So my cash into the deal is gonna be about 700K. Now we ran the numbers, and 90,000 divided by 700,000, we looked at that, and at the end of the day, we're looking at about 12.85%. That's what I call a cash on cash. That's my cash on cash return. Now, write this number down. 12.85%. That's my cash on cash return. You're asking yourself, how much did I invest? How much did I get back? To 12.85% cash on, 13%, right? And we're talking this whole deal would take, again, we're thinking 6 to 9 months, maybe a year to look at it, and essentially 90 grand back in my pocket. That's super size, right? We've talked about that. That's what we're looking at, where you're thinking Grand Mac Daddy, 890 calories, it's a little bit bigger deal, putting 100,000 into it, a lot of rehab, that kind of thing. Now let's walk through, when I'm talking about just my normal average, those are good by the way, those are really good. They shouldn't be that good. Anyways, the average kind of just bread and butter type of a deal, and what that looks like. Because I think it's interesting to say, When am I gonna go supersize? When am I gonna go value size? And how do those numbers actually work out? So let's walk through just a bread and butter, kind of more value type of a deal. We're gonna call this deal, the deal that we're into right now, on Dalton Ave. Okay? Are you with me? How are we doing? Taking some notes? Getting a feel for it? Okay, so we went supersize. Let's go value meal. So on this particular deal, and I wrote some of my notes down, the purchase price on this one was $130K. Purchase. My rehab on something like this, I think we decided the rehab was about 20K. So we put 20 into this one. So we'll do that 150. And then my carrying costs on something like this are gonna be right around 10 grand, okay? So 10K in carrying costs. So write this down, 130, put 20 into it, that's on the rehab. You think, what can you get for 20 grand a rehab? We're talking carpet, talking paint, few light fixtures, maybe we're painting the cabinets, a couple of knobs. It's really just kind of a refresher kind of thing to the house, right? For 20 grand. This Dalton Avenue property, it's 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. It's got like a little carport type of thing. Just think you drive down and we're talking mid-America, just medium price point type of house. So Dalton Avenue, 130 purchase, 20 in rehab. At the end of the day, 150 plus 10, 160. So I'm into this property 160,000. So think about that, put that in your mind. So now you're thinking, well, what's it worth on the top end? This property went under contract at 205, and we sold at 205. That was our after rehab value. Again, you run those comps, you figure that out. We do that in other videos, we talk about that. And so that's what we were under contract with. You gotta pay the closing costs, you gotta pay the agents, things like that. So that's gonna cost us about 15,000. So that's gonna put us in about what, 190? 190K. So 190K is gonna be, again, my gross profit, okay? So now remember what we were into this thing? So 190K is the gross profit, and I'm into this thing 160. So I'm gonna take out the 160. Now this is gross, and this is net. Now you're thinking 30K. It's not as good as the 90, but I'm liking the 30K. Now let's take it the next level, and this is where most people are not analyzing these deals. Again, we're talking about 30,000, which was made. That's the profit. And you gotta divide that by everything that you're into that property. Remember, we bought it for 130, we put 20 into it, we had some carrying costs. We're basically into the whole deal about 160. So ultimately, what is our cash on cash return? I think we ran the numbers and it's 18.75%. Versus, what was our other number? I think it was, what, 12?
13.
About 13%, 12.85. So you're asking yourself, do I want an 18 or 19% return on my money, or do I want a 13% return on my money? Initially, the supersize deal definitely seems like the better deal, but ultimately, these type of bread and butter deals on a cash on cash return, money back into your pocket, your return on those dollars, end up actually being better. It's a little bit counterintuitive, I know, because you're like, I make 90 grand or 30 grand, but I also want you to think about this. The time frame it takes you to eat that supersized meal versus the time frame that actually takes you to eat that value size meal. This type of a deal right here on an 18% cash on cash return, we're looking at about a 3, maybe a 4 month. So you could actually do this deal, do at least 2 or 3 of those types of deals while you're actually doing that, or you could just do the one supersized deal. So you can see the difference in when it's maybe not such a good time to supersize and when it's time to just stay a little bit more value meal oriented. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit in terms of how to do that. So let me just walk you through just one other scenario. Did you know that you can actually do this even better where there's no money tied up? I do that in a lot of my other trainings, and definitely if you're interested and you want to learn a little bit more about that, how that would work for you and how to do this business with little to no money, and it's an entirely different strategy, a lot of the same principles, definitely I want to go ahead and check out my link that's right below. And I do that in a completely different webinar. It's completely free. I walk you through a lot of the details, a lot of my advanced students that are doing right now in today's marketplace. So definitely, like another week right here, hopefully you're excited about Real Estate Straight Talk. If you guys have questions, definitely leave them below, because every week when I do these, these episodes come directly from the questions from you. I want to serve you definitely the best that I possibly can. So next time you head through the drive-thru, I want you to think yourself a little bit, supersize or stick with the value. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.